Hi children, welcome back to AP Macroeconomics with your favorite teacher, me, Mr. Fritz. Today we're going to talk about demand shocks and supply shocks, as well as cost push inflation and demand pull inflation. When a demand shock is occurring, all that's really happening is that aggregate demand is either increasing, a positive demand shock, or decreasing, a negative demand shock. Remember, there's four parts of aggregate demand that can cause aggregate demand to increase or decrease. That's CIGX, consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, and net exports. So if one of those changes, let's say that net exports have increased, aggregate demand could increase and shift to the right. That would be a positive demand shock, and now we have an inflationary gap. This is also referred to as demand pull inflation. So now we're in an inflationary gap. Our prices have increased, but our real GDP has increased as well. We're in an inflationary gap and our unemployment rate is going down. We've got more production, so we have lower unemployment. This is called demand pull inflation. Us demanding more goods and services has caused price level to increase, or inflation to occur. This isn't that big of a deal simply because our unemployment rate has decreased too. So the economy is doing really well, and that's what's driven up the price level. You, of course, want to keep those prices from spiraling out of control, but it's not as bad as the next one I'm about to show you. A supply shock is going to be anything that causes the short-run aggregate supply curve to either increase or decrease. If short-run aggregate supply were to decrease, it's probably going to be because of an increase in input prices, namely oil. If oil increases in price, that makes everything harder to make, literally everything. Our economy is very much reliant on oil for energy and shipping items across the world. So if the price of oil goes up, it'll become harder to make everything. Short-run aggregate supply will decrease and shift to the left. That's a negative supply shock, and that leads to a higher price level. So a negative supply shock has led to an increase in the price level, so inflation is higher, and our real GDP has decreased, so our unemployment rate is higher as well. This is called cost push inflation. The cost of producing goods and services has caused inflation to occur. This also has a name called stagflation. So this is both called cost push inflation and stagflation. This is a terrible thing. If aggregate demand increased and we had what's called demand pull inflation, that really wouldn't be that big of a deal compared to this cost push inflation, because this has made it where people don't have a job and everything costs more. It's really bad for the economy, and you don't want to be in this situation. All right, children, that was demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about self-adjustments in the macroeconomy. Goodbye.